right. I'm going to try to wake people up after lunch, and people might be getting a little drowsy here. I'm the CEO of VTrips. We have 1,800 properties in over 15 destinations, and these are 20 lessons learned. And I think this is a different presentation than I've made in the past, and hopefully you'll get some value out of it. So these are going to be 20 tips that I've learned to help you as a property manager. So that's a blank page. That's not good. Okay. These are some of the markets we're in. Just to give you an idea, we're not just in the Panhandle, although we do have some properties in Panama City. We have properties in New Mexico, Florida, even Hawaii. So I've got a lot of different data. Okay. First tip, software. So I'm going to start with what probably is, I know people will say we'll start with employees, but we're going to start with software. We're going to start with software in terms of talking about how important software decisions are to the future of your business. And what I can share is, number one, when you're looking at software, make decisions not based on price, but based on the scale of the software. So take a look at, can the software grow with you? Number two, create a request for proposal. There's a lot of vendors in these rooms. They try to get you hooked into the software. You need to take a look and you need to create a competitive process, particularly if you're going with something like a property management system that is pretty sophisticated. And a request for proposal is your best estimates of the scope and what you need. Make sure you understand the software cost. Some are by units, some are by percentage. Make sure you understand this. And I know this is tedious and boring, but look, if you make a mistake with software, particularly property management software, it can really screw you up. There's some companies that have gotten into deep financial trouble by making the wrong decision on software. Make sure you know who the leadership team is behind the software system, and check out references, not just the references the salespeople give. Okay, software you use, the property management system, is mission critical. And when we got this note from HomeAway that they were going to sunset V12, which was news to me, but what we did was we went through a competitive process, and we looked at a number of companies. And we got them into a competitive situation. And the last tip is negotiate the contract. Don't just sign whatever they put in front of you. Take a look at the contract. We took it to legal. We negotiated the contract for 60 days, okay? Because it was really important to make sure we didn't get into a bind and that the SOP and the software deliverables were clear, okay? This is one of the most important things people in this room will make, is a decision to migrate from one software system to the other. It is mission critical that you put the time, effort, and diligence into this, or you could be in a world of trouble. And there are software companies that are hemorrhaging customers right now. Some are in this vendor hall, and you don't want to be on their system. So you should ask a lot of questions. You should check a lot of references. Don't listen to salespeople. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, what they want to tell you. You need to talk to property managers that are on this. I went to one software conference, and users were coming up to me and saying, don't go on this system. It was so messed up. All right. We're going to now talk about employees. We love them, don't we? They're the lifeblood. One big happy family. Okay, let's be real. It is the most difficult situation right now, particularly in these resort markets, where there's almost no unemployment. And in some cases, you're dealing with employees who maybe 5 years ago, you would have shown them the door. And now you're having to think really hard about, if I let them go, who am I going to replace them with? So, I would really encourage you to look at the cost of training. and proactively, one of the things we're doing is we're doing annual raises, annual performances, annual bonuses, and even retention bonuses, because many, many times the person you let go, you're going to regret, because the person you hire probably will be worse, okay? I'm just telling you that. And we've hired people back for more money. Please come back. We'll give you more money, okay? You know, if you have an employee that's struggling, considering restructuring your organizational chart, considering maybe that they may be better in a different position. Some people are not front-facing, some people are better back. You know, I would not give up on an employee. If you've hired them from one role, try another one. When you have an issue with employees, use written documentation. Don't just put it in email. And, you know, you got to really be smart when you're letting someone go to avoid things that could involve you in litigation. We have an HR department now, and we're very, very, very careful. Okay? Proactively schedule sensitivity training. If you have a number of employees or even small group, this is becoming an issue. And at least if you have it, it helps if you ever have a problem, and hopefully you can prevent problems. And I would avoid hiring friends and family. I know probably some of you in this room have hired friends or families. It just makes it more difficult, okay? And it's already difficult enough with these companies that we're in, and it can be real morale problems down the road. All right, I'm going to speed up here. Oh, one other tip, we're hiring from competitors. So, you know, we're actively targeting competition, and we're stealing people away for a couple bucks more. You know, they're pre-trained. Okay. Owner lessons. We love owners. I would recommend everybody in this room, if you don't set up an owner FAQ, we have one. We give it to the owners before we onboard them. Include safety, regulatory, maintenance items in there. Consider, with a difficult owner, consider putting a maintenance block on their property. Nothing creates cooperation like a maintenance block into perpetuity. Hold annual property inspections. We do reviews on every unit, and we disclose it to the owner, and they have then a history of reviews, and then we tie ratings into those reviews. I recommend it. We do it for all 1,800 properties. And we tie rental rates to those ratings. At the end of each season, review the lower performing properties and determine if there's certain properties you should let go. And look, I mean, between ratings, inspections, well, one thing that's not even on here, we've gone to 2-year contracts. So even when we bring on a new owner now, we're tying them into 2 years, trying to stop the churn. So it's harder to get an owner to sign a 2-year contract, but it's far stickier. You know, the first year is tough, right? And you really start to build momentum from year 2 on. So we want a commitment from these owners that they're not going to just be hopping around, because this churn is creating a lot of problems. Okay. Guests who want to blackmail you. I'm sure there's people in this room who have had guests who are trying to blackmail them. Here are some tips. Don't get emotional. In some cases, these guests are playing a game to shake you down, to grab money from you. Understand what they're doing. Review your guest contract and address issues up front, and provide in writing what your policies or procedures are. And if you're on Airbnb or VRBO, put those in the house rules so you have time to address these issues. Offer travel insurance and make sure they say either yes or no, because that's a defense. If they turn down the travel insurance and there's a storm or they lose their job or something like that, you're not necessarily going to be on the hook for a refund. Clearly indicate how dispute process will be covered in your guest contract. We've gone to arbitration. It has solved a lot of problems. because in the past they'd have their brother, the lawyer, or their uncle, the lawyer, send a letter, and you're being dragged. We've been sued out of state. Now by saying for arbitration, we're able to get arbitration, binding arbitration. It eliminates 90% of the nonsense, okay? Take it from me, take a look at it. Your lawyers will tell you don't go to arbitration. I'm going to tell you go to arbitration. It'll solve a lot of problems. Lawyers don't like arbitrations. Empower your staff to provide courtesy refunds and conditional moves. And if legal, disclose and record telephone conversations and utilize it to prove that the customer is trying to blackmail you, okay? You can then get them kicked off the OTA, et cetera. And understand that sometimes your best move, even with a customer blackmailing you, is to settle and get a non-disclosure or a release. Okay, I know that some people say, well, I'm not negotiating. Look, I mean, we got to be practical. We have a lot of other things we have to deal with. Sometimes the best course of action is settle with the guest, get a non-disclosure, and get a release.
What do you mean non-disclosure?
That they can't post the settlement anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, regulation. We heard a bunch about this. What advice can you say? All right, look, we've talked about this on this panel, the fact that 99% of you don't get involved until something happens, and then now it's a crisis. So there's stuff happening literally in Tallahassee. I was in the Tallahassee in the Senate. 3 property managers showed up. That is it for a Senate committee hearing that's going to help eliminate local governments being involved in vacation rentals. And I watched the telecast of the House, and again, only 3 people showed up. So it's a real problem when the people in this room don't show up, let alone don't engage politicians. And the one guy said, you're either at the dinner table or you're the meal, and that's the case. I'm frustrated because I've talked about this over and over again. So again, it's common sense stuff. Make sure you're in compliance. Meet with government officials before something happens. So I'm going to coffee with commissioners before a rental ordinance comes out. I mean, I know there's rumors of it. It's easier for me to talk to them at a coffee shop than the 3 minutes in front of a politically charged council meeting. I would work with any OTA once a government issue comes into place. I'm aware of a workshop next week. I emailed over 100 people to make sure that everyone was aware of a workshop. And let me tell you, a workshop's a good thing. If you hear the word workshop, that's what you want to hear, because at least you have the ability to make input on something before it becomes an ordinance. If something's already drafted into a bill, then it's hard. So getting people to a workshop and showing up in force so that you have numbers really helps draft an ordinance that we can live with. By the way, that's it. We're going to have ordinances in some of these places. You just have to draft one that you can live with. Again, we have to understand we have to compromise on these issues. All right. Dealing with a new competitor. So we've seen them. Competition's coming. Commission compression is a trend. There's no way it's going backwards. And we're going to see more and more commission compression. So you're going to have to start to be smart about adding fees to the guest. One thing we've done is we've started adding fees to the owner where they don't really read the contract carefully, where they pay the credit card. So, you're going to have to take a look. If they want a lower commission, how are you going to get that money back? Okay? Guest fees that we've added, booking fees, non-refundable property protection fees, cancellation fees, travel insurance, pet fees, etc. Our fees now make up 70% of our revenue. 30% is commissions, 70% is fees. That is true. So that's how we've done it. Take time to think of your competitive advantage and how you're going to compete. Make sure you have an FAQ, share it with your staff. When an owner gets a solicitation, make sure you know how to communicate back. For existing owners who are thinking about leaving, give them a longer contract with a lower commission split. So we have an owner who says, look, I'm thinking of leaving. I put them now on a 2-year contract. So at least I know for 2 years they're bound. And for owners, consider sending out a teaser offer where for maybe the first year you give them a reduced discount or free deep cleaning. You're going to have to be competitive. You're going to have to change some of the way you're doing business to compete. All right. What pain points will hit you as you grow? Let's talk about this real quick. I talked about property management software. If you make the wrong mistake on property management software, it could set you back a long time, okay? Depending on the type of properties you have, condos are easier, houses are harder. Your inspection process will break down. It certainly broke down in our company. One of the things we learned in this environment is we started hiring people. We used to just do all independent contractors. Now we're hiring people in-house to do inspections and cleaning, particularly in certain markets. It's just been really, really difficult with the labor situation. And, we're finding a balance between having part-time, full-time employees and then some reliable independent contractors. And the other thing that will break down is kind of when you're early starting, everybody has jack of all trades or wearing multiple hats. You're going to have to start to specialize your employees. So this person might be in charge of housekeeping. This person might be in charge of reservations, owner acquisitions. So you'll start to evolve. And some employees are going to struggle if they're used to, running around. And now you're saying, okay, you're just in charge of reservations or you're just in charge of housekeeping. But if you grow to a certain size, specialization is the only way you're going to be able to do this. Okay, tip 8, embarking on new endeavors. Here's some things that worked. Here's some things that didn't. We tried to do carpet cleaning, and we tried to do cleaning of rent by owners. That was not profitable. It did not work. A bad idea. We did an annual long-term rental division. That's been profitable. That's worked. It's a nice little business stream. We've done virtual offices where we didn't have a physical brick or mortar office. Over time, I found out that does not work. You cannot hold contracts with virtual offices, and I think some of these companies with virtual offices are finding this out the hard way. We've gone to all brick and mortar at this point. We tried to market to competitors' properties, but we could not scale. So we tried to use, this whole concept that you could share inventory, that we could not figure out how to make that work. I hear property management companies talking about this all the time. We did in-house maintenance versus independent contractors. Results are mixed, and it's by markets. So some markets we use more independent contractors than employees. Some markets more independent than employees. Look, you're going to have to use both because the labor situation is brutal. And in-house cleaners we talked about. Smart home technology has worked. I recommend, someone there was up here, Lino from Be Home 247. That has saved us a ton of money. It's a competitive edge. Smart home technology definitely works. Definitely saves you money. Okay, tip 9, fees. How do you deal with guests and owners that are questioning your fees? The best type of fees are win-win, where you can address them with an FAQ. Non-refundable property protection fees, I think we know how we can defend this. Mr. Owner, it's for your protection. This way, if there's damage, we pay for it. The guest, you don't have to do a refundable security deposit. Booking fee or amenity fee, you should list the type of items that the guest gets. Free Wi-Fi, free parking, whatever it is. These are the amenities. The hotels are doing these amenity fees. You just want to be able to justify them. Travel insurance, we know for sure how we can defend travel insurance, loss of job, hurricane, et cetera. And travel agent fees, Mr. Owner, we have to charge a travel agent fee, which we do by increasing the rent. One of the people up here was talking about how you have to bump up the rent. We then take it off the top, and that's how we pay these OTAs like Booking.com. Okay, tip number 10, experiencing smart home technology. Really good. We have 90% of our property smart home technology. We've rolled it out. We have we send guests directly to properties. We send discrete codes to work people, housekeepers. We can track access. And most owners have been reluctant to pay for smart home technology. So we as the company own the lock, and we get the owner to sign an addendum saying that we own it. That's been the cleanest way to get this in, okay? It really has saved us a lot of money in terms of cost. And we use this as a competitive advantage when we're going into markets. Yeah. We do. Inspecting every property before rentals. Let's talk about this. We got to be real here. In the past, we did not inspect properties when we first started. That was a big mistake. Then we went to the other extreme where we did 100% of our properties. That was equally a big mistake because in many cases, we were getting no quality and we were being billed. We're at about a 50% rotation. So we literally have people who are randomly, or not even randomly, scientifically figuring out which properties we inspect. Obviously, owner ones we inspect every stay. 50% seems to be the right balance. Maybe in a Saturday market, it's even less. But we're not doing 100%. I know there's people who are going to die on that hill. Go ahead. It's impractical. In the past, we used freelance inspectors. Today, we have full-time employees that are doing inspections because then we get them to do light housekeeping, light bulbs, the things like that. We can train them to take on extra work. It's easier to have employees perform light maintenance as opposed to the inspector who just wants to get in and out. And we have checklists that everybody uses. All right, number 12. In-house marketing or using an outside agency. Here's some lessons I've learned. For OTAs, I recommend that you are hands-on or use a channel manager, okay? I would not try to have an outside marketing firm manage your OTAs. It's too important. Social media, I recommend doing this externally. If you can find someone that'll do it cheap. I have not found a huge ROI on social media. I know there's probably people that say, hey, we have, well, great, but how much is it costing you? How much of a benefit, how much of a true ROI are you getting versus paying someone $500 or $1,000 a month? Email marketing, I recommend definitely using an outside firm. Email is a very high ROI. You can manage cost, and they'll have sophisticated systems that can track and manage a high level of creative and dynamic templates. Paid search, I would try to manage it internally, but if you have to, you can do it externally, but you need to be very hands-on. You need to get monthly reports. You need to hold these people feet to the fire. We hold them on a revenue to expense ratio. Ours is 15%, and they can't spend anything over that. So if they generate $100,000 in revenue, rent, then it can't cost more than $15,000, okay? Some months we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Some month when conversion's low, maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And on SEO, I would use an outside firm. I would not spend a lot on SEO or press releases, but again, you can find some firms to do this pretty cheap. All right, more lessons. Is your service department a profit center? I've heard this before. People saying, our profit, we make money on our service department. I don't know how they do it. It's not a profit center for us. But we've never been able to make it work. We do add a 10% markup. We just try not to lose money. And the easiest way to lose money is not billing back owners. You've got to make sure you have systems where if you have in-house employees that are doing maintenance work, you got to bill it out. There's definitely profit leaks there, and that's where you got to really tighten things up. Make sure you're billing everything back, and be prepared to eat some of this because we have owners that are constantly second-guessing us. You can lose good properties if you're perceived to be too expensive or gouging on maintenance. That's why we've resisted increasing more than a 10% markup. You may be better at this, but we constantly get this, you're gouging us. We don't want to lose a good owner over maintenance or service costs. The best way is to pass fees to the guest, not the owner. That's where we're making our money, and understand how important these properties are from a lifetime value, because you're probably going to be eating bills from owners. Okay. Best way to find new properties to expand your business. Network with real estate agents. We're finding real estate agents are the #1 referral right now. There's a lot of sales and happening, and these real estate agents, we give them a referral fee. I'm a licensed broker, and it works out really, really well. We consider hiring a dedicated person who all they do is owner acquisition. Every one of our office has at least one person. Some offices have 2. One office has 3. And we pay them a bonus for every property they sign up. And sometimes it depends on the size of the property. Send personalized mailings to property records. So that's another thing we're doing. We're not just sending postcards. We're handwriting envelopes. We're putting in a sticky note. We're putting in a business card. Anything you can do to kind of get over the noise. And if there's registration in your county, go to the county and get the property records. They have to release them, and you'll have a list of everybody that's registered in your city, county, whatever, that you can target. Okay, tip 15, strategies for chargeback and fraud. Okay, we've seen a tremendous rise of fraud, and we were victimized by it about a couple years ago, and now they have something called friendly fraud, which is just crazy. Friendly fraud is, I guess the kid took the credit card, that's the claim, right? So always get a signed rental agreement from every guest, including an OTA, because your rental agreement will supersede the merchant agreement, and normally we can win a dispute with a credit card if we have a signed agreement. Document in notes every phone call and every email from guests. So we paste it all into a field, and we keep track of everything they said. Have guest initial or sign next to cancellation policy. So it's not just enough just to have one signature, have an initial next to the cancellation policy. Document and confirm if they call and say there's a maintenance problem, that work was done. Put those in your notes. For last minute reservations, request a photo of the guest holding their ID in their hands next to their face. Because we've had people literally dispute that they stayed in the property. So we're now taking a photograph of them with their identification in their hand next to their face. There are deadlines to fight chargebacks. You need to understand them. You can lose a chargeback simply by missing a deadline. Okay, tip 16, where should property managers look for the biggest return on investment? Okay, add guest fees. So we've increased booking fees, cancellation fees, travel insurance, damage fees, and pet fees. All in the last couple of years, we've increased these fees. Add smart locks where you can reduce in-person check-ins, so you don't have staff, you don't have keys. Use technology to automate guest payment, owner portal, cleaning services, and owner statements. So these, again, are big ROIs. Add higher rate plans to OTA. So one of the gentlemen was talking about, if you have booking.com, you've got to increase the rate. I mean, we increase the rate 15, 20%. Then we take a travel agent fee off the top. That's how we pay for it. That's a really strong ROI. Those are some ideas there. All right, OTAs. Use them, but don't trust them. Okay? So these people, they're not your friends. Don't trust what they say. Watch what they do. They're a marketing channel. Diversify your company. I had some lovely conversation with someone from Vrbo this week, and they said, our account was down year over year, and they were worried because it looked like we were reducing our units. And I said, yes, we were purposely reducing our units on Vrbo, And they said, why? And I said, because we want to take that inventory to other channels. So we've been slowly diversifying away from certain channels and spreading our volume to other ones. So Booking.com, Airbnb, some of these niche sites, Google. We've been diversifying carefully, Expedia as well, and we've been definitely diversifying. So I would recommend that you diversify away from any one OTA, and because some OTAs, they may eventually become your competitor. They may want to sign up your owners, and they may change their policies last minute, match back, change the terms with HomeAway included, where they eliminated tiers. And they ratchet up their subscription prices 30 or 40% in 1 year. These are things that OTAs can do. That's why you don't want to be dependent on any one. Be very careful dealing with OTAs. Use your eyes wide open. Upcharge plans. Every OTA we're on, we charge more money on the OTA than we do on our direct website. Okay? Let me be clear. Our website's always the lowest price. We do not do price parity. Every OTA, even Airbnb, and we charge more for Airbnb because they're a pain in the ass. We increase rates anywhere from 10% to as high as 25% on an OTA. Okay? So always list the lowest price on your website. Always, always, always list the lowest price. Okay. Amy threw in laundry facilities. I guess everyone would be excited about laundry facilities. So we have now opened 2 laundry facilities. That's really a laundry facility we own. So, this is not something that you just want to roll out of bed and say, I want to open up a laundry facility. It's a pretty big CapEx. So make sure you set up a facility with enough space for growth and put it on a natural gas pipeline. The first time we did a laundry facility, it wasn't on a natural gas pipeline, and we got crushed, okay? So first lesson, wherever you go, if you're going to put a building or you're going to rent a building, find out, is it on a natural gas pipeline? Because energy is going to be one of your biggest variables. You'll need enough volume to make the laundry facility work. Understand and measure out your poundage and figure out. So I'm pretty good with Excel sheets. I mathematically figured out our break point. You should know, and once you open up a laundry facility, you should be tracking every day how much poundage they put out and how much they get back. You're going to have to take into account things like shrinkage and things like that. But even if you're using a third party, you're probably having shrinkage as well. Understand your biggest variables are labor. Okay, labor would be people, and that certain equipment can greatly reduce the amount of people. We made a mistake. We bought an ironer in our second facility, and we bought it used, and it's been a maintenance nightmare. So we're getting a slight credit for it, and we're replacing it with one that's got 2 arms, so that you only need 1 employee to feed it as opposed to 2. So that'll cut down on 1 FTE person per day because of this little mechanical arm that takes the sheet, puts it into the folder, and folds it out. And then it has been down. So, that's called a CapEx expenditure, right? So that's a $130,000 machine. But if you calculate out the cost of savings of 1 or 2 FTEs per week, you can figure out how quickly you can make a return on a CapEx expenditure. Track linen and terry shrinkage carefully and understand the importance of stain removal and soilage preservation. So you may have people working in that facility. Your number 1 hire is your linen manager. You've got to have somebody that's run a plant before, or you could have all kinds of problems and horror stories. Watch invoices carefully. The supply and chemical costs can be negotiated. Understand trucking laws. Don't just start hauling in a commercial vehicle without understanding whether the truck, the driver's registered. And by the way, anyone that's driving a car, you should be doing a background check if they're driving something. So, there's some scary stuff going on. You don't want to have liability because someone has a DUI and is driving on a suspended license or with and you don't know. Make sure you have that in your employee handbook. Biggest failures and how it's changed my business. So, we lost a big rental restriction battle in Flagler County, and we really underestimated that an elected judge would be fair. So we thought, oh, well, the law's on our side, but we went in and, it's an elected judge, and these judges can be partisan, and if enough old people show up in the front row, the judge can be swayed. So that was a big mistake, which is why I'm urging you, don't let this stuff get to a point where you have to take it to court. Go to Tallahassee. Go to your local legislator or city and talk to these politicians before something happens and you've got to litigate. Listening to lawyers, that's always a mistake. Attempting to build a cloud-based customer relation management system, that was a mistake. We're not a technology company, and when we get out of our lane and try to build technology, that has not always gone well. So that's why I like to use hosted systems. And we entered a market called Orlando. It was just a completely different market with a completely different business model. We ended up closing that office after 3 years. I'd recommend that once you make a mistake, you lay down a losing hand as fast as possible. You don't want to compound the mistake by doubling down. So, okay, what are the secrets to success? Driving the business by budgets and variance, being driven by profitability, using commercial debt and not equity to grow the business. Look, I've been seeing this for a while, and many of you may not have heard of the story of WeWorks, and you may not care, but WeWorks is a catastrophe of equity and bad business model. It was kind of a pyramid scheme on a leaseback model. Well, this is now cascading into other companies, starting with Oyo. Oyo is a huge company out of India. You may have heard of them. They've certainly been high profile. They just had a massive layoff. So all of this stuff that's happened with WeWork and SoftBanks is starting to kind of go all throughout. The bottom line is companies that don't have profitable business models or a sure way to prove that they can be profitable may not continue to get funding, okay? So the merry-go-round and the fun may end, certainly on the urban side. Certainly on the urban side, we're going to see some of these large, high-flying companies get cut off from future funding, and they're going to have to start laying people off. Even in this industry, I would predict profitability is going to have to come. So don't believe for a second that these people who have run around, had terrible business model, that the day of reckoning may be coming soon. Ability to adapt, evolve, think outside of the box. You're going to have to continue to evolve. You're going to have to take time away from the business like now and think about ideas and test them. You're going to have to be able to evolve. And then willingness to take calculated risk. Not just risk, but calculated risk. And once you make that decision, don't second guess yourself. So you're going to have to take risk. And we've used M&A to grow our business. I know there's people here that'll say they'll never do it. Look, it's irrefutable that there's scale to this business. If you can buy your competitor or someone down the street that's looking to retire and double the size of your inventory or whatever, it's going to help you from a profitability standpoint, okay? Those are my tips. I think I have a few minutes for a question or two. Yes?
You had mentioned the Orlando market was different than what I guess you had anticipated. What was different about it? What did you anticipate and what was different and why did it ultimately not work?
Okay, good question. I always get this Orlando question. So I thought Orlando would be like every other market we went into, that you would use OTAs. And the first thing is, I know you think there's a lot of hotels here. It is hotel Mecca in Orlando. And it's timeshare Mecca. And these timeshares and these hotels it's like a mud pit, and particularly with the timeshares. And I mean, they have so much inventory, and we're not just talking about a single hotel. With the timeshares, you got 2, 3 bedroom condo villas. So you're competing against Westgate and all these players, Disney, of course. Then there's so much inventory. There's so much inventory. And then one of the things that we weren't good at was we didn't realize that you had to do these tour operators. Well, I'd never heard of dealing with tour operators where you would just give them wholesale pricing at, bucket rates, and then they would buy this inventory and then they resell it into packages. Well, the problem in a market with a lot of supply and not enough demand is that these tour operators are going to just keep nickel and diming you and slow paying you. And I got fed up with it. So I think you'll hear from many OTAs that they don't really need any more inventory in Orlando. I know maybe there's some people here that may want to run back to Orlando and open up a business, but I would recommend don't do it. There's people that are in there. A lot of these companies in Orlando are on visa, to get a visa. So just be careful with that. All right, it looks like I'm out of time. Oh, one more question.
You mentioned one of your fails being marketing competitors' properties. How did that work?
Yeah, so we attempted, another Orlando example. We had a dear colleague in Orlando that convinced me to represent some of his properties on our site, and he would represent some of our properties on his site in Orlando, and we'd get Disney Beach vacations. The logistics were crazy. We couldn't figure out how to do it. Now, I understand that there's some companies now where all you're going to do is just book their properties, and those bookings will go directly to them. So there may be some opportunities, but when we were doing it, we were literally having to put their inventory onto our PMS and then push the reservation out to them, and it was just a nightmare. Okay, thank you. Hope you got something out of this.